afternoon, calm returns to the Ajen Kotoku onion market as trading activities resume following recent violent clashes and a temporary closure caused by rival dispute over control over the market.
Also this hour, Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly begins a major demolition exercise at the Kumasi Sports Stadium as part of the Assembly's city beautification drive.
A lot later, reprieve for the entire world as US and Iran agreed to a 2-week conditional ceasefire and the temporary reopening of the Strait of Hormuz after a last-minute diplomatic intervention led by Pakistan.
It's News Central live on TV3. I'm Kemeni Amano.
And I am Mawena Egbeta. The bulletin starts right now.
The U.S. and Iran have agreed to a 2-week conditional ceasefire, which includes a temporary reopening of the Strait of Hormuz after a last-minute diplomatic intervention led by Pakistan. Trump's announcement of the ceasefire agreement came less than 2 hours before the U.S. President's self-imposed deadline to bomb Iran's power plants and bridges in a move that legal scholars, as well as officials from numerous countries and the Pope, had warned could constitute war crimes. Just hours earlier, Trump had written on his private social media, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." End of quote. American B-52 bombers were reported to be en route to Iran before the ceasefire agreement was announced. But by Tuesday evening, Trump announced that a ceasefire agreement had been mediated through Pakistan, whose Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had requested the 2-week peace in order to allow diplomacy to run its course. Now let's talk about that 10-point U.S.-Iran ceasefire plan. What is in it?
Right, and so let's get straight into it. And a complete cessation of the war on Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen. We know that this conflict has gone past just Iran since it started somewhere in February. It has escalated to part of Lebanon, where there's been fights ongoing between Israel and Hezbollah, and as well in Yemen as well. All of these have become a part of the escalation which we've seen over the course of the last 1 month plus. Then also the complete and permanent cessation of the war on Iran with no time limit. And so they zero in on Iran, to be specific as well, ending all conflict in the region in their entirety, because last year there were skirmishes which resulted in a temporary closure of the Strait of Hormuz for some time, which saw prices on the oil markets go up, and then there was a ceasefire like this before we saw the escalation somewhere this year again. And so they say they want all of it to come to an end once and for all. There is the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and that has already begun to have some tell in terms of the commodities market. We saw oil drop by some 12% yesterday. As of this morning, it was selling at $94 per barrel, down from 113, 114. And so that news already beginning to take shape on the market as well. Establishing a protocol and conditions to ensure freedom and security of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, also closely tied to a lot of global trade that has to do or go through that particular part of the country. Full payment of compensation for reconstruction costs to Iran, because there has been quite the demolition. In fact, on the first day of the attack, a school infrastructure was what suffered, and 160 individuals lost their lives as a result of that. Iran says all of these destructions have to be paid for. Railway lines, power plants, you call it what. All of that has to be paid for by the U.S. Full commitment to lifting sanctions on Iran. For a lot of people, they are new to a lot of this conflict, but Iran has been under heavy sanctions from the US for a very long time as a result of this conflict and enrichment of uranium, amongst other things, and the fact that they cannot have nuclear powers or nuclear bombs as a country. That's come with sanctions for them as well. They say this should be the chance where all of those sanctions go away. They're asking for a release of Iranian funds and frozen assets held by the US as well, closely tied to a lot of the sanctions. And then Iran fully commits to not seeking possession of any nuclear weapons. And so that as well will mean Iran will give up any of its ambitions to ever own nuclear weapons. And then immediate ceasefire takes effect on all fronts immediately upon approval of the above conditions. And so that's a 10-point plan, which has seen a bit of peace return, and the market's already reacting to it as well.
But I guess the question would be, how trustworthy this can be. Joining me now. Actually, we've seen that before, right? Let's speak now to international relations and security expert Dr. Vladimir Enchidanso, who has warned that the escalating tensions in the Middle East could have significant economic implications for this country. Doc, I appreciate your time this afternoon, but did you see the ceasefire coming?
Thanks also for having me.
Did you see the ceasefire coming, despite the threat from the U.S. President Donald Trump that he planned to wipe out Iran?
Well, I was convinced that he wasn't going to carry this through because it would be detrimental to his own government and to the U.S. And I knew how erratic he has always been. So I knew that at the last minute he would find an excuse also to postpone it or to issue a different kind of threat. So I really knew. And well, in international relations, you use all tools in the tools box. I wouldn't be surprised if the Americans also, or Trump himself, ignited this whole process by asking Pakistan to be more forceful in this sense. The things.
I see. What will it take now that we have some 2 weeks of conditional ceasefire? What would it take to get a permanent ceasefire, considering the impacts the war is having on the livelihoods, not only of people in the Gulf region, but even people in the U.S.?
It will take a hell of effort. Unfortunately, the UN doesn't have the capacity to do what it should do. What can change the course of history would be Europe. Europe, Russia, and China teaming up together to call the bluff of America and to call the bluff of Israel. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened in history before. Because if we do not take time, there is the possibility that we are heading towards Armageddon. The Iranians have a resolve to fight until the last person. And I believe that if they continue on that path, Israeli pride would have been hurt. American pride would have been hurt. And they will carry out this threat of obliterating almost everything, in Iran. And that would be disastrous for the whole world.
Very well. Doc, I'm told that you have very little time. We'll end our conversation here. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Vladimir Enchidanso.
You are very, very welcome.
Indeed, is an international relations and security expert. I'll bring in now Professor Daniel Dramani Kipo Sunyuezi, who is an associate professor at the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy. Doc, look, we've always known about the flip-flopping of the U.S. president in terms of announcing progress in this war on Iran. And then here we are, a few hours to his own deadline. He says that we have agreed on a conditional ceasefire. How trustworthy is this ceasefire, knowing very well that in the case of Gaza, despite the ceasefire, Israel still went ahead to bomb Gaza? What do you think?
Thank you very much. That certainly, thanks for viewers and listeners. I think Donald Trump actually has been a very interesting politician and somebody who is very difficult to predict in terms of his foreign policy orientation. And I think that he might have used another form of maybe the soft power, not the hard power, to push others into this ceasefire. All that we are looking for is that we are very hopeful that this ceasefire will not just be a temporary one, but should lead to a permanent one, because that should be the way. As for war and violence, I don't see that as solution to these very issues that they have. But diplomacy should be the way out. And if these Pakistanis are able to mediate, and that is part of trilateral relation that we are using there, and if that works, I think that should be the way forward. And we expect that both sides, the Iranians, the US and Israel on the other side, will come in, at least, possibly, let's see how they can have some compromises and to be able to agree on some of the points. Not all of them will be accepted, but there should be a point where they'll be able to work towards a win-win situation.
I mean, but do you see Israel ceasing fire over the next 2 weeks?
Israel certainly may cease fire if coming to attack Iran is concerned. Because if US should tell Israel, do not attack Iran, I think Israel will keep to it.
Well, but the US, remember that in the case of Gaza, the US did tell Israel that, look, let's not go ahead with any more bombings. But Israel defied that order from their own ally and bombed Gaza. So how sure are we that the same will repeat here in this Iran case?
I think US can always pressurize Israel to stop it. But remember some of the things. One of the reasons why the Israelis went ahead to continue bombing Gaza was that they said that the Palestinian or the Hamas guys or some of them crossed the yellow line. And because they used that, and Americans also saw that, yes, indeed they crossed, that was how they allowed them. If they cross, then attack them. So, but I still agree that, yes, Israelis can be a bit very difficult, but I believe that for Iran, Israel knows Iran is a force to reckon with, because Iran is a state, it's not a non-state actor. And so Iran is very forceful in terms of missiles. They have them. They have the capacity to strike Israel. So I believe that Israel will not do as is doing in Gaza in terms of Iran. But what I know that they may not back down is the area of Southern Lebanon. And they are claiming to be able to take the land all the way to the Litani River.
I see.
I believe that the Americans may have to step in. Otherwise, the violence in Lebanon could be so much for the world to witness.
Which brings the question of whether or not there could be a permanent ceasefire in this case, because in that 10-point ceasefire plan, Iran is asking that attacks on Lebanon, Yemen, and even Iran itself should cease. But we have Israel that is on an onslaught also on Lebanon.
Some of the resolutions, that's what I said, are a bit difficult to enforce. Take, for instance,
which ones do you see?
To say that all attacks on all fronts should cease, that may be very difficult, because one of the reasons why Israel is doing that is that they have asked Iran to stop sponsoring those proxies. And Iran has also refused to stop sponsoring the proxies. So it is a two-way point. And if Iran can stop supporting Hezbollah, the Hutus, and all these groups, I'm sure that would be the best solution to it. But if Iran continues to support, Israel will also continue to attack. So that is a two-way. It should be a two-way. Israelis must hold, Iranians must hold their part. And then if we're talking of the missile or the uranium enrichment, that is also a very difficult one that we are hopeful to see whether they'll be able to keep to it. One of the positions is that Iranians have made their mind that they are not going to stop the uranium enrichment. And since all these issues from 2015 to this, that has been the position. And that is what actually led to the war. And US and Israel are thinking that if Iran should have a nuclear warhead, then it becomes an existential threat to Israel.
But Prof, you also know that the UN was sent to Iran to check on the uranium enrichment program, and they had said it had no consequence on the rest of the region in terms of its nuclear ability to destroy the region. Israel, on the other hand, has nuclear weapons. And so why is the attention on a uranium enrichment that cannot destroy the region so much?
So that is the hypocrisy of the international system, because those who have the nuclear are asking others not to get it. And the reason for it is that they developed the nuclear before some of the international non-proliferation treaties came in. So that is also a historical point. and some have it, but what they are saying that those who have it should keep to it, but they should not use it against. But those who do not have it must not have it. And I think that is the aspect. Iranians did not have it in the 60s. They are trying to acquire it. And they are saying that don't. And they're also saying that we have the right to acquire it because we see Israel as a threat. And so that's the difficulty. As we said, if UN was very strong, UN would have been the best way to check all these things. But I think UN is a bit, at a point, is helpless. And so that is why all these things are coming. Otherwise, that should have been the best area. The UN Security Council should be take a measure and take action, and all this will stop. But if you go to the UN system, it is very difficult to work because of veto power.
Very well. Sounds like a very long walk to permanent ceasefire. We'll see how things play out over the next 2 weeks.
That's right. That's right.
Thank
we
you
are
very
hopeful that diplomacy should be the way. I think that should be the way done.
Very well, Prof. I appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Professor Kipo is an international relations expert. He's also an associate professor at LSEAD.
Let's move away from all of the international related politics for you this afternoon, because calm has been restored to the Ajin Kotoku onion market following violent clashes and a temporary closure caused by disputes over the alleged seizure of trucks belonging to rival foreign traders. The incident, which disrupted trading activities at one of the country's key onion hubs, is also said to be linked to growing allegations of political interference in the management of the market. Joseph Armstrong reports from the market that trucks from Nigeria are currently offloading their goods after they were initially prevented from doing so. And we're taking you there right now to connect with Joseph. Armstrong, thank you very much for joining us. What can you report at this minute? Well, we'll seek to connect with Armstrong pretty shortly, but he sent this report through early on. Let's take a listen while we work the connection to speak to him.
Onion market here in Accra after Monday's unfortunate incident that led to the short disruption in the distributing and also offloading of onion here at Ghana and also back in Nigeria. Currently, as it stands right now, all these trucks you see, you are told, are coming from Nigeria, and they were prevented from offloading their goods from Monday to today. And many of the onions you see they are bringing from the trucks have rotten, and we are told by some of the people who brought them that's come as a cost to them, and they are asking that what happened on Monday should not repeat itself again. It was unfortunate that that fight indeed interrupted here that led to the disruption of the business that happened. But today is great business for all the onion sellers here. I'll talk to this boss. Boss, I can see you are offloading some onions. Talk to me.
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah, morning. So you are offloading some onions.
Yeah.
But I've seen some of the onions, they've gone bad.
Yeah, because of the waiting. They have come like 1 week ago.
They've been here for like a week now.
Like that is why the onion. You know, onion, you don't like the waiting or something like that. So that's why.
So fight is not good.
It's not good.
You think the fight wasn't necessary?
It's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good at all. So they shouldn't fight again.
Yeah, we hope.
You also saying something. You said the fight is not good.
The fight is not good.
The fight is not good. Look at me, let's talk. The fight didn't help.
No.
So anybody who wants to create fight, you want to tell them they shouldn't do this fight again.
Profit will not come.
Profit will not come. With fight, no profits. No. But at least you have some of your onions offloading from the trucks now. I can count at least not less than at least some 50 trucks gathered here at the Ajin Kotoku onion market, and it's been like this since morning. I'll talk to a few of the onion sellers here, those those who actually transported some of these things from Nigeria to this place and find out how the market has been like, and particularly those who have lost many of their sacks due to the long waiting of the onions here at the market. Boss, how are you?
Lafia low.
Yeah, Lafia low, Lafia low. It means I was saying, onion, almost say, we are saying.
Lafia, 1 million, 50 Ghana.
What ton sack in 50 Ghana? Now, say, and say, I'm going to say,
and can say, the BG 8 million now, 85.
Say,
Let's take you live right now to my colleague Armstrong, who is still at the market, to get a sense of what the situation is right now. Armstrong, thank you very much for joining us. We've just seen that report from earlier. Has the situation smoothened even more? And what have they been telling you possibly resulted in the clashes we saw yesterday?
We've seen that some police personnel have also been deployed here to ensure that the place is calm as it has been, and so far so good. We're speaking to the secretary of the area, who explained to me that so far we have 7 trucks currently on the way coming to this place after the ceasefire, trying to get some of the leadership of this area to talk to them and maybe get more explanation from them and see how it has been so far. But as it stands right now, the only challenge we have here is about the fact that we have many of the onions rotting away. I talked to a few of the leaders here, some information from them on what is on the ground now. Well, they will not talk to me. They are interested in to this place, and that is the most important thing to them right now. So far, so good. Please here ensure that nothing bad happens here, and the business men and women here are just going about their work as it stands right now, and they've assured that going forward on Monday will not repeat itself. They have said that to us with some of the leadership here that everything is in order, and hopefully the Trade Ministry will have a meeting with them in subsequent days, and after that everything will be in order. Joseph Armstrong, Gold and TV3, over to you in the studios.
Absolutely, Armstrong. Thank you very much for those details. That's Joseph Armstrong, Gold and Logbe, my colleague from the Ajin Kutuku Onion Market. Back here, President Mahama has nominated 5 individuals to serve on an independent fiscal council as part of reforms contained in the new Public Financial Management Act 2025, Act 1136, with a primary mandate to strengthen financial oversight, fiscal prudence, and shape sound decision-making in management of the country's public finances. The 5-member Fiscal Council will independently assess the fiscal policy of the country and make recommendations to government in respect of fiscal policy and provide Parliament's Budget Committee with assessment of government adherence to the primary balance and public debt rules. Formation of this independent Fiscal Council is in line with the country's April 2026 exit from the International Monetary Fund program. And let me walk you through the membership of that council right now. It makes for an interesting read. The individuals who've been appointed onto this council. Some of the faces known, some of the faces have occupied previous sensitive positions in terms of our fiscal space before as well. Dr. Emmanuel Otin Kuma is the chair of this committee. Professor Patrick Opoku-Esuming is a rep from academia and is a regular, someone we speak to very often here. Leslie Dwight Mensah as well, a rep from Research Think Tank, also someone we engage quite on the regular. Kweku Bedu Ado, ex-public policy expert from the Finance Ministry, and then Dr. Henry Akpenamau Kofi Wampa, ex-public policy expert from the Bank of Ghana, as a former governor of the central bank as well, helping us appreciate exactly what all of this means. Christian Yale is joining me with a bit more on this latest, the Public Financial Management Act, and what the expectation is supposed to be. Christian, thank you very much for joining us. We will look at concerns about the independence of the Fiscal Council, but first tell us about the Public Financial Management Act and what reforms it's seeking to introduce.
Eric, so what we know is that when you look at the Public Financial Management Amendment Act 2025, it introduces a number of rules to tighten fiscal policy and how government spends in the year, in a fiscal year. Now, one of the introductions or the new reforms that we have seen is the primary balance. Now, this rule is requiring that for every year, government must ensure that its revenue exceeds its expenditure by an amount that is equivalent to 1.5% of the GDP for that year. Now, this does not include interest payment on existing debts. Now, we know that we used to have what we call the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982, but it had this clause in it. However, that particular one did not set out what you would call, the adjustment or also the value for the annual primary balance. And so this adjustment, as we have it in the new reform in the amended law, is going to ensure the government, spends prudently whenever it needs to do so in any fiscal year. Eric, we also have what we call the public debt rule that is also introduced in the new law. Now, this public debt rule is basically going to help the government to reduce the public debt to GDP for every particular year and also ensure that government engages in long-term debt sustainability and also reduce excessive borrowing, among many other things. Now, in all of this, when there are breaches to the primary balance as well as what you call the public debt rule, the government would be required under this new law to send corrective measures to Parliament in the next budget that Parliament would have to approve. Also, Eric, it is worth noting that the finance minister under this law has the power to suspend either the public debt rule or the primary balance rule when there is what you call the force majeure or there is unforeseen economic circumstances that would, contradict the country's overall economic outlook. But in doing so, he needs to get express approval from the House of Legislature, which is Parliament, before it can go ahead to do all of that. So these are some of the reforms that the Public Financial Management Amendment Act 2025 is seeking to introduce. Eric.
Thank you very much for those details. And Christian mentions some component of this bill, some of which is informed by not too recent development within the Ghanaian economy, debt sustainability conversations and concerns. Here's a bit more in terms of what this 5-member group is supposed to be doing. So they are to independently assess the fiscal policy and compliance with primary balance as against the debt rules, which Christian was talking to us about, promote transparency, accountability, and long-term sustainability in public finances, provide government with fiscal policy recommendations, provide budget committee, that's a budget committee of Parliament, well, it could go beyond that as well, with assessment of government adherence to primary balance debt rules. There's a budget committee as well within the finance ministry, and has the power to request public entities to provide relevant information to enable performance of its functions. For the many things that they can do, they will provide a first half-year assessment report on compliance with primary balance or public debt rules not later than September every year. A question which should be asked is, will this year be a part of it? Annual assessment report on compliance with rules not later than April after end of each financial year. And so they are supposed to provide 2 reports to help us appreciate whether or not we're being compliant. And remember, all of this is being done because we're exiting the IMF program at the end of this month. A lot of persons who've been analyzing a lot of the work that has been done presently by this current administration have asked, it is because there is a big brother overseeing everything else that's happening. What happens when they leave? is a question that they've been asking. Well, this is one of the many measures which the current administration is introducing. Still, there are questions to be asked as to compliance and whether or not they follow through on these. And also, lastly, any analytical report on fiscal performance, you'd expect that they can provide that as well as we come along. Let's bring you some other stories quickly. And President Mahama today began his one-day official visit to Paris with a meeting with the president of the French Senate, Gerard Larcher. He was welcomed with a military ceremony before the bilateral meeting, which discussed, among others, trade and investment and regional cooperation and regional security and the fight against terrorism. France support for maternal health care and agriculture in the country, Ghana, and the remarkable improvement to Ghana's economy under President Mahama. The president and his delegation, which includes the Foreign Minister, Samuel Okudwa-Ablakwa, the National Security Advisor, Prosper Bani, Secretary to the President, Dr. Callistus Mahama, Presidential Advisor and Special Aide Joyce Mokhtari, and Ghana's Ambassador to France, Mavis Frimpong, will later today hold talks with the French President, Emmanuel Macron, at the palace. It will take us on to our very first break here on the Bulletin. When we return, we have a bit more for you in terms of stories. Please do stay tuned in.
There's something where? Mrs.
William Evans Inkum has the rest of the story.
Some of these structures have become obstruction. For instance, this food and drinking spot directly opposite the T.I. Ahmadiyya Senior High School has been erected just at the edge of a major intersection. The KMA says they are illegal. Some of the shop owners who were around during the operation promised to remove their shops as soon as possible. Such shops were spared by the KMA task force.
Kumasi is the second largest city in the country, and as it happens in all major cities, major roads, ceremonial roads are kept tidy, and that is exactly what we want to do. So there are 3 areas that we are focusing on in this EPO to make sure that structures that do not help us to have the beautification of Kumasi as we expected will be carried away. Now the first area is in between the Swami roundabout or the Swami interchange, so to call once it's under construction, and then Abepo Junction.
In another development, the mayor has also given car dealers at the frontage of the State Boys School an extension of time to remove their cars. This follows TV3's earlier report.
Now, persistent telecommunication network fluctuations continue to impact businesses and social life in part of the Afajato South District of the Volta region. In the Leklebi Enclave, residents say the impact is far-reaching and are appealing to government to act. More in the following report by my colleague Fiscal Abdul Idris.
Of communities across the Afajato South District are currently without or are struggling with fluctuating telecommunication network, a problem that has persisted for decades. In the Leklebi Enclave, the situation is worse as residents in Agbesia, Duga, Fiape, Dafo, among others, move from one point to the other in search of strong signal for calls or internet connectivity.
Telecommunication network or data have been terrible in this community like Agbesia for so long. Sometimes ago, we have a tree even here that we call, a river tree, that you have to climb that tree before you can access a good network. Sometimes to even that, you have to raise your phone up. Whenever you get it, you have to stay there. You shouldn't shake your hand till you get the network to talk. Even today, I try to do a lot of calls.
The fluctuating network challenge is also having a toll on local trade, resulting in high cost of doing business in the area. It is negatively impacting our businesses. Sometimes when our business partners call to give us stock, they don't get us. So they are forced to give out the stock to other customers. As a result, we are always traveling by road to get stock instead of just placing a call. We are pleading with government to intervene and resolve the network challenge immediately. At the Leklebi Kame border post, security officers say the poor network is negatively impacting their operations.
Once you leave your homes and get to the bar here, you have nothing to do with network because it's not working. So getting in terms of calls, data, and nothing. And our work, we would have to get record of the passengers, the vehicle coming in, or record passport and all that. We have to send them through the system, and it gets to our regional and then finally to our headquarters. And it's become difficult. So in an emergency situation where you have to get information to the office and it has to be sent, we have to rely on motor or our vehicle. And those processes delays, and so I think we getting a good network here will help us.
While the impact is overreaching, District Chief Executive for the area, Manfred Tewia, says steps are already being taken to address the problem.
Since the dawn of mobile telephony, some areas in Afajato have never experienced good network. So when I took over, I went to GIFEC to lobby, and the result is what we are seeing today. We are hopeful that when completed, our communication will improve, our teaching and learning will improve, and also security and emergency service also improve.
Project, which is being undertaken by GIFEC, has already begun in Agbesia and will be extended into the other communities. Faisal Abdul Idrisu, TV3 News, Afajato South.
Now, youth of Techiman have called out chiefs on what they describe as reckless encroachment on the banks of the Tano River. The youth are accusing some chiefs of facilitating land sales within protected river zones, a move they warn will inevitably lead to flooding in the township.
The Tano River is a vital lifeblood for the Bono East region. However, increasingly, the Tano River is being choked by new structures, while lush vegetation once chewed to absorb seasonal rains. During this year's Apo festivities, also known as traditional democracy, the youth emphasized the direct impact of these encroachments to lives and properties.
You know, there are some water banks. You don't have to sell land for people. You know, that then is not good. Maybe there can be a flood and things will spoil, or even we can lose a life. So this is the right time we can tell them.
The chiefs say they will take steps to ensure the protection of the river.
We will not do that. But sometimes it will be at the blind side of the leadership. So once it comes to the fore, then we develop a system to track and then ensure that people see what they want to see.
Communities rely heavily on the Tano River, and these encroachments, if not checked, will continue to impact not just access to water, but also the livelihood of the residents who depend on the river.
Now, the Supreme Court of Ghana, the highest court of the land, is marking 150 years of existence. At a press briefing in Accra, the court highlighted the evolution since 1876, its role in upholding constitutionalism, protecting human rights, and resolving key national disputes over periods of political and legal challenges. The anniversary themed Honoring the Past, Celebrating the Present, and Defining the Future will feature lectures, outreach programs, and a month-long celebration in July, following an official launch on April 16. A Justice of the Supreme Court and Chairman of the Planning Committee, Justice Richard Ejefrimpong, has been speaking.
The evolution of the court has been checkered, challenging, yet enduring. The court has not been spared the misfortunes of political hostility, military interventions, featuring suspensions and abrogations of constitutions, societal criticisms, even condemnation.
Article 1815 of the Constitution has been interpreted by the court to ensure that international business agreements involving the state shall not come into operation unless it is approved by a resolution of Parliament. By this decision, the representatives of the people have a final say in how the executive transacts international businesses. Further, prisoners are permitted to vote, thereby expanding the frontiers of universal adult suffrage. Again, today, one does not need a police permit in order to embark on a demonstration. Finally, and perhaps most significantly, two presidential election disputes have been resolved by the court to ensure political stability. The theme for the celebration is honoring the past, celebrating the present, and defining the future. This theme is fitting and apposite. We believe it is deserving to celebrate the historical significance of the court, honor the achievement of our forebears, and highlight the court's contribution to the social, political, and democratic development of the country. This is not going to be just a celebration. It shall be a moment of stock-taking, lesson learning, and strategizing into the future. The actual celebrations will be a month-long event and shall be held from the 1st to the 31st of July. The events lined up for the celebrations will include lectures and symposia by various dignitaries, locally and internationally, legal outreach programs, moot court competitions, sporting events, shortcutting of anniversary projects, thereby to climax the celebrations, dinner and Thanksgiving.
That will take us on to another break. We'll return with just a bit more stories and then we take the show. Stay with us.
The wait is over. A new world, new stakes. Across Ghana's campuses, the search begins. The faculty is back.
What exactly makes you think you have top or strong communication? Number one.
What was your overall crisis communication objective?
Do you have what it takes? Topping 10 returns.
Topping 10 have given me the opportunity to study what I want to achieve in the next 5 years.
12 interns, 10 weeks, one life-changing opportunity.
The winner, Sandra.
If you hold a second-class upper degree or higher, this is your moment. Register now. Topping 10 Season 3. The Topping 10. Today's learners, tomorrow's leaders.
It's more than a TV show. It's World Life Comes Alive. A party every weekday at 1 p.m. A masterclass in living your best life.
The news. For many Ghanaians, especially young people, HIV self-testing has become a preferred option because it offers privacy, convenience, and quick results. But health authorities are raising concerns about counterfeit HIV test kits reported on the Nigerian market, warning they could undermine Ghana's HIV control efforts if they find their way onto our markets.
HIV self-testing is increasingly becoming popular, particularly among individuals who prefer to avoid the stigma often associated with visiting testing centers. Many people choose to purchase the kits outside hospitals, relying on the results to make critical decisions about their health. But health experts warn that counterfeit kits could produce false negative results, giving users a false sense of reassurance or false positives that may cause unnecessary panic and emotional distress. Recent reports indicate a number of fake testing kits identified on the Nigerian market. Gains made by government in controlling HIV infections could be threatened if these fake kits enter the Ghanaian market.
We expect people to take notes of those batch numbers. You know, we gave clearly the names, photographs and everything, so that if they are going for such tests, it is their right to find out from the lab the type of diagnostic they are using. That is why we cannot take consumer education out. It doesn't matter the barriers we built, the efforts we put in. Consumers should be well educated. So if you have a well educated consumer, even if the product slips through, that consumer will become the final barrier to alert us.
The FDA says it is intensifying surveillance at entry points and working with stakeholders to prevent any influx of counterfeit kits into the country.
In addition to the alerts we released, we've communicated with healthcare professionals, institutions, and all places that they find, they return them to us. So it is like as we are informing the population, at the same time, behind the scenes, we take all measures to pick any available one so that it is not even used on the population. There are so many ports in Ghana. FDA does not sit at all the border towns. And if you have visited any of our border towns, we even have people living in Ghana. Their farms are in Togo. So movement of these products can easily happen.
As regulators work to prevent the entry of the counterfeit HIV test kits, the message remains clear.
The FDA says the fake testing kits are not yet on the Ghanaian market, but the general public is hereby cautioned to look out for the original test kits at the various pharmacies across the country to ensure the accurate result is what you are getting for proper health care. Sarah Apenko, TV3 News, Accra.
Now, from telemedicine consultations in remote communities to expanded labs testing, science is gradually reshaping patient care and improving service delivery in the country. However, findings show that these gains are not evenly distributed across the country. Health authorities are calling for stronger investment in science, research and innovation to improve health outcomes. A report by Sarah Penkro.
Ghana's healthcare system is believed to be experiencing a quiet but broader shift, one driven by science, innovation and collaboration. Across several health facilities, new medical equipment, digital health records, and improved diagnostic services are helping clinicians make faster and more accurate decisions. The FDA is one of the outfits in the country making waves.
Registration of our products and regulation. We've deployed what we call the GFM, which is a regulatory information management system. And with that system, it is allowing us to go paperless. So now with all our regulatory functions, if you want to register products, everything is done online. And we are also talking with our development partners so that we'll be able to deploy AI-assisted tools so that instead of using long manual time to evaluate and assess the documents we receive from our client, we'll be able to use shorter times.
The World Health Organization country representative to Ghana, Dr. Fiona Braka, on the occasion of the World Health Day, is urging policymakers to prioritize evidence-based investments to build health security and drive national development.
We are raising our voices to join Ghana, to join the world in celebrating these achievements, but also calling on the government to continue to support these initiatives through financing, domestic financing. We are also raising our advocacy to call on partners to continue to support Ghana in these efforts, and we are calling also on frontline workers to continue the great work that you are doing to make sure that every Ghanaian has access to quality services.
Some facilities continue to face staff shortages, limited bed capacity, and delays in accessing specialized care, affecting timely treatment for many patients.
As a government, we must support these innovators by creating enabling environment through smart procurement system, responsive regulations, and stronger investment pathways that allow promising innovation to scale across the country.
Ghana joins the rest of the world to mark World Health Day under the theme Together for Health, Stand with Science.
That's our bulletin this afternoon, which came to you from our studios. I am Marwan Egbe.
And I am Kemeni Amano. We're back same time tomorrow with more news. Bye-bye.